Hey everyone, welcome. Today, we're cracking open a true literary masterpiece for a deep dive. We're looking at Ben Jonson's famous 17th century play, The Alchemist. Now, don't let the date fool you. This isn't just some dusty old script. I actually view this play as the absolute ultimate con artist playbook. It's a brilliant, hilarious, and honestly razor-sharp masterclass in human psychology that is literally just as relevant right now as the day it was written. I'm super excited to walk you through this explainer, so let's just jump right in.
Step 1. The setup. You know, every great scam needs the absolute perfect environment to operate safely. And our story begins in London during a pretty terrifying reality: a massive plague is sweeping through the city. Naturally, anyone with money is fleeing for their lives to safer locations. One of these wealthy guys is a gentleman named Lovewit. He packs up, escapes the disease, and leaves his giant luxurious house in the care of his seemingly loyal servant, Jeremy. But the very second Lovewit is out the door, this totally empty house instantly transforms into the perfect, rent-free headquarters for an opportunistic, massive fraud business.
Moving right along to step 2, the masterminds.
Now, what's really interesting here is how perfectly this criminal trio divides up the work. Jeremy, that supposedly loyal servant, instantly drops his real identity. He changes his name to Face and essentially becomes the ultimate insider and operations manager. Then, he teams up with two other crooks. First up, there's Subtle, who plays the role of a fake alchemist and this powerful mystical magician. And then there's Dull Common, who is just an absolute master of disguise. Together, this trio sets up a business with one incredibly lucrative product. They literally sell people their own wildest dreams.
Which brings us to step 3, the marks, or the victims.
Let's be real, a scam is absolutely nothing without its victims, and these masterminds know exactly how to target a person's absolute deepest weaknesses. Just look at this hilarious roster of marks. Jonson is using these characters to basically satirize every different flavor of greed in society. First off, we've got Dapper. He's a young law clerk whose blind desire is just to win at gambling. So Subtle convinces him he has a magical connection to the fairy queen who's going to guarantee he wins big. Then there's Drugger, a simple tobacco shop owner who just wants his business to succeed. Subtle tricks this poor guy into paying for fake astrological advice on exactly which direction to place his shop furniture. No way, right? And we also have Ananias and Tribulation Wholesome. They are two Puritans who hide this extreme, ruthless greed behind a super religious image, and they're hoping to buy gold to expand their power.
But I gotta say, the absolute biggest source of comedy in the whole play is Sir Epicure Mammon. So Mammon is already rich, but he's utterly obsessed with luxury. His ultimate fantasy is getting his hands on the Philosopher's Stone, that mythical object that turns any metal into gold and grants immortality. Subtle promises to literally make him this stone in just a few days. Mammon's fantasies are so wildly over the top, he genuinely believes having unlimited gold is going to make him the most powerful man in the world. And to reel him in even further, Dull Common disguises herself as this noble, highly spiritual lady. This completely blinds Mammon to the incredibly obvious fraud happening right in front of his face.
And just when you think this house couldn't possibly fit another person, in walks Castrol. He's a rich country gentleman with a surprisingly almost childish desire. He just wants to learn how to quarrel and fight like a fashionable Londoner. But Castrol brings along his sister, Dame Pliant, who happens to be a very wealthy, widowed woman. Instantly, she becomes a massive new target for our con artists. Suddenly, the whole plan shifts. Both Face and Subtle decide they want to marry Dame Pliant so they can steal her property. And as you can guess, this introduces a highly volatile element to their little partnership.
And that leads us right into step 4, the scheme escalates.
Let's see how this builds, because with all these greedy victims packed into one single house, the tension just skyrockets into total chaos. First, the house is literally flooded with customers, and every single one of them is expecting immediate miracles. They want their gold, their luck, their social status, and they want it right now. Next up, we get a massive clash of egos. Under all this pressure, Face and Subtle start fighting violently over who the real mastermind is, who deserves the biggest cut of the profits, and of course, who actually gets to marry the wealthy Dame Pliant. Finally, poor Dull Common is stuck on damage control. She's desperately trying to stop their infighting because she knows for a fact that if they don't work together, the entire scheme is going to crash and burn.
Step 5. The climax.
Okay, so the stage is perfectly set for a dramatic turning point. I want you to imagine the sheer, heart-stopping panic among our con artists. Right at the absolute height of their chaotic operation, news breaks that Lovewit, the wealthy owner of the house, is returning home much earlier than expected. So, what exactly happens when the real boss actually comes back?
Well, it's a fast-paced total collapse. In minute 1, Lovewit arrives at his front door only to find a massive, chaotic line of completely strange people, all screaming and demanding magical miracles. By minute 5, Subtle and Dull Common realize the game is totally up. They flee for their absolute lives, abandoning all their fake alchemy equipment and whatever loot they had stolen, just trying to avoid jail time. And by minute 10, Face, showing his incredible sneaky cunning, instantly drops his mastermind persona. He transforms right back into the loyal servant Jeremy and starts preparing to spin a massive, desperate lie to save his own skin.
Meanwhile, out on the street, the illusion finally shatters for the victims. It's a hilarious, but honestly pretty painful realization. Dapper realizes there is no magical fairy queen. Drugger finally understands that the astrology was just a cheap trick to take his money. Sir Epicure Mammon realizes his beloved Philosopher's Stone never even existed. And the Puritans realize their own religious greed had completely blinded them to the truth. They've all been thoroughly, completely played.
But back inside the house, we get this brilliant, highly twisted resolution. Face uses his sharp intelligence to weave this crazy story for Lovewit, actually convincing his master that the house was overtaken by fraudsters and that he, Jeremy, was just a helpless victim in all of this too. Amazingly, Lovewit actually buys it and forgives Face entirely. Even better for Lovewit, he ends up marrying the wealthy Dame Plion himself, securing her fortune for his own. Meanwhile, our supposed masterminds, Subtle and Dull, lose absolutely everything. They are left with nothing but the clothes on their backs.
So let's wrap this up with the psychological takeaway.
Ben Jonson wasn't just writing this for a few quick laughs. The crucial psychological lesson here is that greed and blind ambition completely weaken human judgment. Jonson was offering a razor-sharp critique of human hypocrisy, fake spirituality, and superstition. These characters were so desperate for a shortcut that their critical thinking simply shut off.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core truth of the play, and really, of real life. Nobody was forced. That's the crazy part. Face, Subtle, and Dull didn't actually possess any magical powers. They simply weaponized the victim's own greed against them. Every single victim fell willingly into the trap because they wanted wealth, power, or success without putting in an ounce of hard work. It's a pretty sobering lesson that is incredibly relevant today.
Which leaves us with a final, provocative thought to end this explainer. As we look at all the fake gurus, the crypto scams, and the get-rich-quick schemes flooding our social feeds right now, ask yourself, what is your philosopher's stone today? What shortcut to success might tempt you to completely ignore your own common sense? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and remember,